The United States is no longer a guarantee of security in Europe. After Trump's recent statements, it seems that all EU countries have realized this.
There are statements to be considered and around which negotiations are already underway.
The main question facing the EU today is how to protect itself from danger as quickly as possible. The answer was probably found by the future Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz. He sees the solution in moving from under the American nuclear umbrella to the French one.
The discussion was about French military aircraft and personnel, specifically, however many being transferred to Germany with nuclear weapons, in detail.
Interestingly, the once slow-moving Europe seems to have learned to make lightning-fast decisions. Paris not only responded quickly to such a proposal, but also positively. A couple of days ago, Macron officially confirmed that he is ready to send his nuclear aircraft to Germany.
Macron's actions indicate that he understands there's little time.
We decided to find out what exactly the French nuclear deterrent forces consist of. Who else might join France's initiative to guarantee security in Europe? How great is their potential? And most importantly, is it enough to effectively counter the significant main threat posed by the Russian Federation today, the Russian Federation? Watch all about this important topic right now in Arsenal. These discussions began a few weeks ago and intensified after the victory of the CDU-CSU party in the German elections. Their leader, Friedrich Merz, who is likely to become the new German chancellor, started vigorously promoting the idea of security in Europe, independent of the long-standing partner, the United States.
After Donald Trump's statements last week, it becomes quite clear that this current administration does not seem to care much about the future fate of Europe at all. My absolute priority will be to strengthen Europe as soon as possible so that, step by step, we can truly achieve independence from the USA. Europe might need its own alliance instead of NATO.
A separate alliance has not happened yet. However, the idea of creating independent European security forces is being actively promoted.
In reality, there are no decisions yet, specifically decisions that could change the structure, the security system in Europe, and the state of Euro-Atlantic solidarity at the moment.
They decided to start with the main issue. This is nuclear deterrence.
The American nuclear umbrella over Europe. Will it be there or not? In case Russia starts a war against Europe? Here we do not know the answer.
Europeans acknowledge that they need to boost the military-industrial complex, train the army, and increase the number of military personnel. But this is all a lengthy process. However, ensuring nuclear security was decided upon in the EU. It can be done here and now.
First and foremost, this appeal was directed at France. Why? Because the nuclear forces of the United Kingdom are under NATO's command, and everything is strictly regulated there. They are considered in all NATO plans. But the French nuclear forces are under the command of France.
Thus, France was proposed to become the new guarantor of security in Europe, which, by the way, immediately agreed.
A discussion was about deploying a certain number of French fighters with nuclear weapons to Germany in order to enhance capabilities. This was indeed linked to the fact that the US is essentially threatening or might suddenly withdraw its troops from the continent.
Meanwhile, the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, during his recent visit to the US, raised this topic, and it seems did not encounter any objections there. After all, despite the actual expansion of territories where nuclear weapons are located, Trump steadfastly claims that Europe's security is Europe's own responsibility.
There are statements that need to be taken into account and around which negotiations are already underway. This intention of Trump and his team, thank you, to shift that responsibility for security in Europe, including assistance to Ukraine, for security guarantees for Ukraine.
For now, the US has not withdrawn its troops and the situation remains the same. However, analysts believe that the decision has effectively already been made. If the United States withdraws its weapons from Germany, including nuclear ones, they will be replaced by France's nuclear arsenal.
The upcoming NATO summit in 2025 will be very indicative. What the US position will be at this summit and whether mutual understanding can be achieved in security policy for Europe. I have no doubt that changes will occur.
But is France's nuclear potential really that great? Experts agree that it is, of course, incomparable to the reserves of a potential adversary of the Russian Federation. However, it is quite sufficient to provide a worthy response and make the Kremlin think twice about whether to start anything at all.
Although the British and French nuclear deterrents are relatively small compared to the significantly larger Russian nuclear potential, we still have the capability to destroy a large part of Russia. And Putin knows this.
Meanwhile, analysts mention British weapons for a reason. On March 2nd, a security summit was held in London, where EU leaders discussed how to protect themselves from enemies and whether the United Kingdom would help in case of danger. Not publicly, Prime Minister Keir Starmer gave the green light.
In France, these nuclear deterrent forces, as they are called, are independent of NATO. And approximately, let me say, how many, about 300, they say they have about 300 warheads. And the British ones, yes, these warheads for the French, they are both sea-based and air-based. As for the British, in the United Kingdom, they have 4 submarines, each of which can be equipped with up to 16 Trident missiles. Moreover, they were planning to modernize them.
What is noteworthy? While discussing the new security system, European leaders agreed that it is impossible without Ukraine. After all, it is essentially a stronghold against the main adversary and has the largest and most experienced army in Europe.
What this system will be like is actually hard to say for now. Enough. But I am more than sure that without Ukraine, it will not be possible to build this system in Europe in a proper sense. And this understanding, by the way, Europeans already have. That is, they realize that Ukraine is not just resisting the aggression of the Russian Federation. Ukraine has the largest and probably the most capable army in principle on the European continent. Europe with Ukraine in military terms, among other things. This is a much better condition for a hypothetical war that Russia might start now against Europe, including it simply would not take place.
At the same time, Ukraine itself is not against joining a new European military alliance. By providing the EU with security through its infantry units, official Kyiv expects to receive air protection weapon supplies and air defense systems from the West.
Macron, the president of France, is the author of the idea of joint European armed forces. European armed forces. This is the idea that President Zelensky is now actively supporting and promoting. However, Macron is not abandoning NATO. On the contrary, he understands that it is necessary to fight for the preservation of the US partnership in the security sphere, so that the US, if they were to leave Europe, would do so not immediately, but gradually, slowly, so that Europeans could prepare.
And this preparation is in full swing. The funds for the future alliance have already been calculated, and each country is now figuring out how much and what they can contribute to the common pot.
Most likely, I think they will be forming a new European security policy within NATO, at least in the initial stage. That's how it will be indeed. Decisions are already being discussed on which financial mechanisms to employ, where to find additional financial resources, very large financial resources to increase defense spending. Military production should be one of the main priorities, as well as aid to Ukraine. We are talking about amounts. A figure has already been mentioned, approximately 700 billion euros. That's a huge amount of money.
The security guarantees Ukraine will receive upon joining a new alliance are still being discussed. One option mentioned is the deployment of a foreign contingent, the construction of military factories that will work for the armed forces of Ukraine, and the supply of air defense systems, equipment, and weapons. Did you like this video? Then be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our new channel Arsenale. The link is in the description below the video.